I never thought I'd be the kind of person who would get kicked out of his own home by his own parents. But here I am, sitting in my best friend's small, cluttered apartment, surrounded by cardboard boxes filled with my clothes, books, and the random pieces of my life, because my mom and dad decided I'm selfish. Selfish because I wouldn't give my college fund to my younger brother. I'm 19, a freshman in college. My parents have been saving for my education since I was a kid. Birthday cards with cash from my grandparents, straight into the savings account. Small holiday bonuses from my dad's job, into the account. They even put away part of their own salaries each month, even when money was tight. For as long as I can remember, I've been told, asterisk, this is for your future, so you don't have to start your adult life buried in debt. Asterisk. It wasn't a huge fortune, but it was enough to cover most of my tuition, my books, and my housing for the 4 years I'd be in school. I've always been grateful for that. I worked hard in high school, late nights studying, weekends spent doing extra credit work, even turning down hanging out with friends so I could keep my grades high. I knew what my parents were sacrificing for me, and I wanted to make it worth it. By the time I graduated, I had a solid GPA, a partial scholarship, and a clear plan for my life. My younger brother, Ethan, is 17. Well, let's just say academics have never been his thing. He's failed multiple classes, barely passed others, and has a reputation for skipping school to play video games with his friends. We've always been different. I was the responsible one, and Ethan was the free spirit. College? That was never in his plans. Or at least, that's what I thought. About a month ago, everything changed. Ethan suddenly decided he wanted to apply to a private university across the country. Apparently, one of his friends got accepted there, and now he thinks he deserves the same shot. Never mind the fact that his grades are nowhere near good enough, and he hasn't prepared for it at all. One evening, my parents called me into the dining room. I figured it was just a casual family talk, maybe about my classes or how I was adjusting to campus life. Instead, my mom slid a manila folder across the table toward me. Inside were Ethan's college application forms and a printed-out tuition estimate that made my stomach drop. The total cost was way more than any of us could afford, unless, of course, that money came from somewhere specific. My mom folded her hands on the table and said in a calm voice, asterisk, we think it would be fair if you shared your college fund with your brother. He deserves the same chance you got. Asterisk. I stared at her, thinking I'd misheard. Asterisk what? Mom, that's my college fund. I'm already using it for tuition. If I give it to Ethan, I won't be able to pay for next semester. Asterisk. My dad leaned forward, his expression tight. Asterisk. You have a partial scholarship, don't you? You can take out a small loan. You're smart. You'll get a good job and pay it off quickly. Your brother doesn't have that kind of opportunity. Asterisk. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. Asterisk, Dad. Ethan doesn't even have the grades to get into that school. This isn't about equal opportunity. This is about rewarding him for not trying. I've been working hard for years to earn this. You've been saving this money for me my whole life. I can't just hand it over. Asterisk. That's when Ethan walked in, clearly having been listening from the hallway. He didn't even try to hide his smirk. Asterisk, wow. I knew you were selfish, but I didn't think you'd actually choose money over your own family. Asterisk. I turned to him, my voice sharper than I intended. Asterisk, this isn't just money, Ethan. This is my future. You had the same chance I did to work hard, but you didn't. And now you want to take away what I've earned? Asterisk. He rolled his eyes and muttered, asterisk, whatever. Mom and Dad agree with me. You're just being a spoiled brat. Asterisk. My dad slammed his hand on the table. Asterisk, enough. Ethan is your brother. Family helps family. We raised you better than this. Asterisk. I shot back. Asterisk, family doesn't sabotage someone's future to make up for someone else's bad choices. Asterisk. The room went dead silent for a moment. My mom's eyes were full of anger and disappointment. Asterisk, you've changed since you started college. You used to care about your brother. Now you're just cold. Asterisk. I wanted to scream that this wasn't about love or loyalty. It was about basic fairness. But I could see it in their faces. They weren't going to listen. To them, I was already the bad guy. For the next week, the tension in the house was unbearable. Every meal was filled with pointed comments. Asterisk, some people only think about themselves. Asterisk. Asterisk, it's sad when education makes you forget where you came from. Asterisk. Ethan would walk past my room and mutter under his breath, loud enough for me to hear, selfish jerk. I tried to stay out of the way, focus on my classes, and hope they'd calm down. But instead, it escalated. One night, my dad knocked on my door and told me I had 2 weeks to move out. No discussion, no compromise, just, if you can't support your brother, you can't live under our roof. At first, I thought it was a bluff. But the next morning, my mom was packing up the guest room where I usually studied, saying, we'll need the space for Ethan's things once he moves into your room. That was when it hit me. They were serious. The people who had spent my whole life telling me they were proud of me, who had promised they'd always support me, were now ready to throw me out like I was nothing, all because I refused to hand over my future. I packed my stuff slowly over the next few days. Every item I put into a box felt like another piece of my life being ripped away. Ethan didn't help, of course. In fact, he made it worse. Whistling while he walked past my door, making comments about how some people just can't handle sharing. When the day came, I loaded my things into my best friend's car. My mom hugged me, but it was stiff, awkward. My dad barely looked at me. Ethan didn't say a word. As I closed the car door, my dad's only words were, when you learn how to be a real part of this family, maybe you can come back. I didn't reply. I couldn't. My throat felt tight, and I knew if I spoke, my voice would break. So I just nodded, turned away, and left. Now I'm here, sitting in my friend's apartment, wondering how my life fell apart so quickly. I keep asking myself, was I really wrong? Am I the selfish one? Or am I just the only one willing to stand up for what's fair? The first few nights at my friend Jake's apartment felt surreal. I kept expecting my phone to light up with a message from my mom telling me to come home, or my dad knocking on the door saying this was all a big misunderstanding. But nothing. Silence. The kind of silence that feels heavy, like it's sitting on your chest. Jake was kind enough to let me crash on his couch until I figured things out. He didn't ask for rent, just said, stay as long as you need. I was grateful, but the whole time I felt like I was living in someone else's space. Like my life had been scooped up and dumped into a place I didn't belong. My textbooks were stacked in a messy pile next to the couch, and my duffel bag was permanently half open, spilling clothes onto the floor. It didn't feel like home, just a waiting room for a life I wasn't sure I'd get back. School was awkward. I couldn't concentrate in lectures because my mind kept replaying the moment. My dad told me I had 2 weeks to move out. A couple of my classmates noticed I was off and asked if everything was okay. I just shrugged and said, family stuff. How do you even explain something like this without sounding insane? My parents kicked me out because I wouldn't give my tuition money to my brother. Sounds like something out of a bad soap opera. But the thing that really got to me was social media. A week after I moved out, I saw a Facebook post from my mom. A big smiling picture of Ethan holding a college acceptance letter. The caption read, "So proud of our boy. He's going to make his dreams come true." The comment section was full of heart emojis and congratulations from family friends. And then I saw it. My aunt wrote, "So happy you're all working together as a family." My mom replied, "Yes, Ethan's future is our priority. Not our children's future. Not both boys. Just Ethan." That's when it hit me. They had already decided whose side they were on, and I was no longer part of the picture. Jake tried to cheer me up. "Dude, maybe it's just a misunderstanding," he said. "Maybe they think you've got more time to figure things out, and Ethan's deadline is now." But I knew better. This wasn't about time. This was about them believing Ethan deserved something he hadn't earned, and me being punished for saying no. The next blow came 2 weeks later. I went to the bank to pay part of my tuition, and the teller told me my college fund account had been closed. Completely emptied. My hands started shaking as I asked for details. She pulled up the records. The withdrawal had been made by my parents. Not only had they kicked me out, but they had taken the money that was meant for my education. I left the bank in a daze, walking down the street without any real direction. I didn't even notice the cold until Jake called asking where I was. When I told him what happened, he swore under his breath and said, "That's not just wrong. That's illegal. You need to do something." I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to confront them immediately, to storm into the house and demand my money back. Another part of me just felt tired. It's exhausting to fight with the people who are supposed to be your support system. That night, I got a text from Ethan. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't even neutral. It was a picture of him at a campus tour for his dream school, smiling with my parents on either side of him. The caption? "Thanks for making this possible, bro," winking face. I almost threw my phone against the wall. I didn't reply. I didn't trust myself to reply without saying something I couldn't take back. The following weekend, my grandmother called me. She's my dad's mom, and she's always been the kind of person who tells you exactly what she thinks. She said she had heard bits and pieces about what happened, but she wanted to hear it from me. So I told her everything. The savings, the ultimatum, getting kicked out, and now the money being gone. She went quiet for a moment, and then she said, "I gave them a large part of that money for you when you were 10 years old. I told them it was for your education and nothing else." Her voice was shaking. "If they used it for anything else, they've gone against my wishes and your grandfather's." I didn't know what to say. Part of me was relieved that someone in the family finally saw my side. But another part of me was terrified. If my grandmother confronted them, this could turn into an even bigger family war. The next few days were a blur of awkward phone calls. My grandmother called my parents. My parents called me. My mom's voice was icy when she said, "I can't believe you told Grandma. Now she's threatening to cut us off financially. Do you realize what you've done?" I replied, "What I've done? You stole my future, and I'm the problem?" Ethan jumped into the background, yelling something about me being dramatic and acting like the money was mine. I hung up before I said something I'd regret, but the damage was done. Half my relatives stopped talking to me, and the other half were whispering about the family drama, like it was some reality TV show they were watching from a distance. That's when I realized something. If I didn't fight for myself, no one else would. After that last call, I decided I couldn't just sit around waiting for things to get worse. I started looking into what legal options I had. Jake's older sister, Lauren, was a paralegal, and she agreed to meet me for coffee. I brought every document I could find: bank statements, my old college fund agreement, even an email from my grandmother when she first set up the account. Lauren flipped through the papers slowly, frowning. "This is actually pretty clear," she said. "If the account was in your name, and your parents withdrew the money without your consent, that's misappropriation of funds. It's not just morally wrong, it's potentially criminal." The words made my stomach twist. Criminal. Against my own parents. Part of me wanted to slam the folder shut and forget I ever asked for help. But another part of me, the part that had been sleeping on a couch for weeks, watching Ethan's smug Instagram stories, that part wanted justice. Lauren said she could connect me with a lawyer who did free consultations. I thanked her and promised to think about it. That night, I lay awake on Jake's couch, staring at the ceiling and thinking about all the birthdays, holidays, and little family traditions that would never be the same if I went through with this. But then I thought about my grandmother. How betrayed she'd sounded when I told her where the money had gone. I thought about the years I spent working part-time jobs, skipping nights out, saving every extra dollar to add to that fund. And I thought about Ethan's smirk in that campus tour picture. The decision became a little easier. 2 days later, I called the lawyer. He was calm, professional, and didn't sugarcoat anything. "If you pursue this," he said, "you need to be prepared for permanent damage to your relationship with your parents. You might win the money back, but the emotional cost could be high." I told him the emotional cost was already high. He agreed to take a closer look at my case. While all this was going on, word was spreading through the family. My cousin Emma reached out to me over text. She wrote, "I don't want to get in the middle of anything, but I think you should know Ethan's been telling people. You're trying to ruin his life out of jealousy." Jealousy, as if wanting to use my own college fund for, college, was some petty act of sibling rivalry. The pettiness didn't stop there. That weekend, my mom posted a picture of the whole family, minus me, of course, at a family dinner. Ethan was front and center, with a slice of cake and a caption, "Celebrating new beginnings." One of my uncles commented, "Where's my name?" My mom replied, "He's chosen a different path for now." A different path. That phrase stung more than I expected. It made me sound like I'd just wandered off by choice, instead of being pushed out. Jake noticed I was getting quieter, more closed off. He tried to distract me, movie nights, late-night pizza runs. But the truth was, my head was somewhere else entirely. I was already planning my next move. The lawyer asked me to gather any proof I had that the money was meant solely for my education. So I dug through old drawers, old emails, even asked my grandmother if she had any paperwork from when she contributed to the fund. She came through. She found the original written agreement she'd made with my parents, with their signatures on it. It stated, in black and white, that the money was to be used exclusively for my name's post-secondary education. When I saw those words, I felt something shift inside me. This wasn't just a messy family dispute anymore. This was a breach of trust so blatant it could be proven in court. But before I could take any real steps, Ethan decided to reach out again. This time, it was a voice message. He sounded annoyed, almost angry. "Look, man," he said, "I don't know why you're making this such a big deal. It's just money. You can always get loans or something. Mom and Dad were just trying to help me out. Why are you trying to make them look like criminals?" I replayed the message 3 times. Not once did he apologize. Not once did he acknowledge what they'd done to me. It was all about him. Always about him. I didn't respond. A few days later, Jake came home from work with an envelope in his hand. "It was in the mailbox," he said, tossing it to me. It was from my parents. Inside was a short, typed letter. "We've been told you are considering legal action. If you proceed, we will no longer consider you our son. Family is about sacrifice, and you've made it clear you don't understand that. This is your last chance to do the right thing." I read it twice, my hands shaking. Do the right thing? In their eyes, the right thing meant staying silent while they stole from me. It meant letting Ethan get everything while I got nothing. Jake watched me carefully. "So what now?" he asked. I took a deep breath. "Now," I said. I stopped letting them control the narrative. And for the first time in weeks, I actually felt certain about something. The day after I got that letter, I met with the lawyer in person. I handed him the agreement my grandmother had found. And for the first time, I saw him actually lean back in his chair and smile. "This," he said, tapping the paper, "is a game changer. They signed this. They put it in writing. If they fight you in court, they'll lose." It was a strange mix of relief and dread. Relief that I finally had something solid. Dread because the closer I got to real action, the more I felt like I was sawing through the last rope. That tied me to my family. The lawyer suggested we send a formal demand letter first. He explained it as the polite way to say, "Give back the money, or we'll see you in court." Part of me wanted to skip straight to the courtroom drama, but I agreed it was the smarter move. When I left his office, my phone buzzed. It was a notification from Facebook. My mom had tagged me in a post. Against my better judgment, I opened it. It was a picture of Ethan holding a set of dorm room keys, with the caption, "So proud of my boy for starting this exciting new chapter in his life." She'd tagged me with a comment, "See what family support can do." The passive-aggressive tone was impossible to miss. I didn't comment. I didn't react. Instead, I screenshotted the post and sent it to my lawyer. "Keep everything," he'd said earlier. "Even the petty stuff can help." Over the next week, things escalated fast. The demand letter went out, and within 2 days, I got a furious phone call from my dad. "You think you can threaten us?" he shouted. "You're going to regret this. We raised you, we fed you, and this is how you repay us?" I tried to stay calm. "You didn't raise me to be okay with being stolen from," I said. That only made him angrier. He hung up without another word. But then something unexpected happened. My Aunt Marie called me. She's my mom's older sister, and we've always been close. She said she'd heard bits and pieces from family gossip. But when she saw Ethan bragging online about having a free ride to college, she decided she wanted the truth. I told her everything. There was a long silence on the other end. And then she said, "I believe you, and you're doing the right thing." That small bit of validation meant more than I can explain. For weeks, I'd been painted as the villain in my own family. Hearing someone, anyone, say they believed me was like coming up for air after being underwater too long. Marie even offered to testify if it came to that. She said she remembered my grandmother talking about the fund and how it was for you and only you. It wasn't much, but it was another piece of the puzzle. Ethan, meanwhile, wasn't taking things quietly. He posted a series of vague tweets about toxic people and fake family members who don't want to see you succeed. Half his friends were retweeting him, adding their own little jabs about haters. It was childish, but I won't lie, it still got under my skin. Jake kept reminding me not to engage. "Every word you say to them online is a gift for their side," he said. So I stayed quiet. I let the lawyer handle it. Then came the family group chat message. It was from my mom. "Everyone, I want to make something clear. We will not tolerate anyone taking sides in this ridiculous situation. If you support my name in this betrayal, consider yourself unwelcome in our home. That message did exactly what she didn't want. It made people choose sides. And to my surprise, a few cousins actually left the group chat entirely. One of them, Chris, texted me privately and said, "I don't know what's going on exactly, but if they're threatening people for even talking to you, that tells me enough." The isolation was starting to crack. For the first time, it felt like maybe the truth would spread on its own. But just when I thought things couldn't get messier, Ethan showed up at Jake's apartment. I don't know how he found out where I was staying. He knocked like he owned the place. And when I opened the door, he shoved his way inside. "We need to talk," he said flatly. I crossed my arms. "We don't, actually." He ignored me and sat down on the couch. "You're really going through with this? Over some money? Do you have any idea how much you're tearing this family apart?" I laughed, not because it was funny, but because the hypocrisy was so thick I could choke on it. "You mean the family you and Mom and Dad decided I wasn't part of anymore?" He rolled his eyes. "You're being dramatic." That was it. The switch flipped. I told him exactly how I felt. How this wasn't about jealousy. How it wasn't about rivalry. How it was about them taking something that was mine and pretending it was okay. For a split second, I thought I saw guilt in his eyes. But then he shrugged and said, "Well, it's too late now. The money's gone." That hit me like a punch to the gut. Not because I didn't already know it was spent, but because he said it with zero remorse. I told him to leave. He didn't argue. He just stood up, muttered something under his breath, and walked out. When the door closed, Jake looked at me and said, "You realize what he just admitted, right? That could help your case." And suddenly, I knew exactly what my next move would be. 2 mornings after Ethan barged into Jake's place, my lawyer emailed me a draft. A formal notice that we were filing if the funds weren't returned in full within 7 business days. It read colder than anything I could have written myself. Dates, account numbers, signatures, citations. There was no drama in it. No family history, no pleas. Just facts. We sent it at 9:04 a.m. By 11:30, my phone lit up with 3 missed calls from Mom, 1 from Dad, and a wall of texts in the family group chat that I'd muted weeks ago. I didn't respond. At 12:15, the lawyer forwarded me a reply from their attorney. That phrase alone, asterisk their attorney asterisk, hit me like a wave. They'd hired someone. This was real. The reply wasn't apologetic. It argued family discretion, parental oversight, and good faith use for the benefit of a dependent. But the last paragraph blinked like a lighthouse through fog. They were open to discussing a resolution to avoid protracted litigation. My lawyer called. "This is them blinking," he said. "They know the paper your grandmother found kills their argument. If you can handle seeing them, a settlement meeting could wrap this up quickly." I swallowed. I can handle it. We scheduled for Friday afternoon at a bland conference room downtown, the kind with carpet that swallows sound and a table that makes everyone sit straighter. Jake came and waited outside in the hall. When I walked in, my parents were already seated with their attorney. Mom's hands were folded. Dad stared at the legal pad in front of him like it might get up and scold him. No one said hello. My lawyer opened with the agreement, the original document with my parents' signatures, my grandmother's note, and the bank records showing the withdrawal dates. He placed each page down like a playing card he knew would win the hand. Their attorney tried to soften. "This is an unfortunate misunderstanding in a family context." "Misappropriation," my lawyer said, without changing tone. "The agreement is explicit, for my client's post-secondary education only. We are prepared to go to court." Something in Dad's jaw shifted. Mom finally looked at me, and for a second, I saw past the ice to fear. Not fear of court. Fear of what we were doing to each other. Their attorney cleared his throat. What would resolve this? My lawyer didn't hesitate. Full repayment of the withdrawn funds within 30 days, in the exact amount removed, plus filing fees. A written acknowledgement that the funds were intended exclusively for my name, and a written commitment that no attempt will be made to access any of his accounts again. Silence. The HVAC hummed. Somewhere outside, an elevator dinged. Dad spoke first, voice low. "We can't pay it back in 30 days. Mom's eyes flicked from me to the paper to me again. "Michael, please. We were trying to help your brother. He needs a chance." "I needed a chance," I said. "You were giving it to me. Then you took it away." Their attorney whispered to them. Dad nodded, still not meeting my eyes. 60 days, he said. We'll repay everything in 60 days. We'll sign what you want. But this goes away. No court. No police. No spectacle. My lawyer turned to me. It was my decision. I thought about Grandma's shaky voice on the phone. I thought about Ethan's smirk. I thought about sleeping on Jake's couch and about the letter that said I wouldn't be their son if I fought back. I also thought about the version of me who still wanted a way out of this that didn't leave everything shattered. 60 days, I said. Paid in full. And I want the apology in writing. Mom flinched like the word itself stung. Dad signed first. Mom signed after a long minute, her hand trembling just enough that the pen scratched. Their attorney gathered the papers. My lawyer slid copies to me. It was done, in the way that a storm is done when the power comes back on, but the trees are still down. As we stood, Mom reached for her purse and then stopped. Can we talk? Alone? She asked. My lawyer looked at me. I nodded. We stepped into a small side room with a bowl of fake fruit and a window that looked out at nothing. For a second, neither of us said anything. I felt like I was losing you, she said finally. When you left for college, when you moved your life somewhere I couldn't help you with anymore. I didn't know how to be your mom without being useful. Ethan needed help, and I convinced myself it was the same thing. It wasn't, I said. I kept my voice even. You didn't ask. You decided. A tear slid down her cheek. I'm sorry. She swallowed. Not because a lawyer told me to say it. Because I forgot that love isn't about control, or fairness measured in dollars. She took a breath. I don't expect you to forgive me today. I'm not sure I can, I admitted. But I heard you. We walked back in. Dad hovered by the door, stiff and silent, as if an apology might break him in half. We'll make it right, he said, eyes on the carpet. I nodded. I didn't ask for more. In the hallway, Jake stood up so fast his chair scraped. Well, 60 days, I said, and for the first time in months, the words felt like a piece of ground under my feet. The next weeks were anticlimactic in the way healing often is. No speeches, no grand gestures, just deposits landing, one after another, until the account balance climbed back to where it had been before everything broke. My grandmother wrote me a short note on a floral card. Astor is proud of you for standing up for yourself, and proud of you for not becoming cruel while you did it. Love, Grandma. Asterisk, I kept it tucked in my textbook, a bookmark for the part of my life where things changed. Ethan texted once. Asterisk, guess you won. Happy now? Asterisk, I typed and erased a dozen replies before settling on. Asterisk, I didn't win. I set a boundary. There's a difference. Asterisk, he never responded. When the final transfer hit on day 58, I sat in the campus library and just breathed. I paid my tuition the next morning, bought the textbooks I'd been borrowing, and moved out of Jake's living room into a cramped studio above a bakery that smelled like warm sugar at 5 a.m. Every small, boring thing, setting up a desk lamp, washing a single pan, pinning my class schedule to a corkboard, felt like proof that my life belonged to me again. Mom called 2 weeks later. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was careful, like stepping across a floor she wasn't sure would hold. Asterisk, we're going to counseling. Your father and I. We're trying. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. No pressure. Asterisk. I saved the message. I didn't call back right away. Sometimes mercy is giving time. On a Sunday afternoon in late fall, I met my grandmother for lunch at the little diner she's gone to since the 70s. She ordered black coffee and a slice of lemon pie before even looking at the menu. You look taller, she said, squinting at me over her glasses. I'm the same height, Grandma. Not in the ways that matter. She tapped the table with one finger. Do you know the difference between peace and quiet? I shook my head. Quiet is what you get when you don't rock the boat, even when you're sinking. Peace is what you get when you fix the leak, even if everyone yells while you're doing it. She smiled. You chose peace. That's harder. It lasts longer. I walked her back to her car and hugged her, and for the first time since all of this began, I didn't feel hollow. I felt steady. I'm not going to pretend everything is perfect. My relationship with my parents is cautious now, measured in short phone calls and text messages that mostly say, "How are you?" and "Fine." Maybe that will change. Maybe it won't. I've learned that love can exist with a door half closed if that's what keeps you safe. As for Ethan, he started at a community college in town. I heard it from my aunt, not from him. Maybe that's good. Maybe earning something himself will turn a page neither of us could write for him. Here's what I know. Boundaries don't break families. Secrecy and entitlement do. Saying no didn't make me disloyal. It made me honest. It made me an adult. If you're reading this because you're standing where I stood, afraid to speak up because you were raised to believe that family means surrender, hear me. Your future isn't a bargaining chip, even for the people you love. Especially for the people you love. I didn't win. I didn't lose. I chose the kind of life where I can look at myself in the mirror and recognize the person staring back. And tonight, when I lock the door to my little studio and open the window to let the smell of bread drift in while I study, that will be enough.